Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I would have preferred the original name they planned to give me instead of the one they actually gave me? My parents recently told me, 22 female, that they had considered another name for me when mom was pregnant with me. Actually, it was the name they had decided to give me really until mom changed her mind. The original name was Dove Emberly, but my mom was worried it was too weird after a while and she wanted to change it. My dad never did. But eventually it was decided I would be named Emily Catherine. I don't think my dad really likes my name, but maybe he wouldn't have liked anything other than the original. The conversation about my original name came back up between my parents first when mom basically asked dad if he wasn't glad they changed their minds and dad said no. So they actually asked me and told me the two names. I told them I would have preferred the original and I was kinda sad I didn't get Dove as my name, which would be way better than Emily in my opinion, and the middle name Emberly I prefer too, lol. Mom mentioned Ocean had been a contender too and I said that would have been amazing. Mom really wasn't happy. Dad told me if I wanted to use the original name he'd give me the money to change my name. Mom wasn't happy with him. But she really wasn't happy with me. She told me I didn't even hesitate to say I preferred the original name, and she asked me why I liked it so much and told me how sad it made her that the name she felt would suit me better throughout my life instead of as a little girl was one I could discard so easily. Especially because I reacted positively to Dad saying he'd pay for me to change my name. Am I the a-hole?
Your mom was given the gift of learning an age-old life lesson. Don't ask questions if you aren't prepared to hear an answer you won't like. Not the a-hole.
I don't get that at all. The mom literally went out of her way to hurt her own feelings and then blamed dad and daughter over a name choice they didn't use 22 years ago?
She was trying to hurt her husband and it backfired. It's not fair when she's the one whose name choice is criticized, you see. Yes.
There's nothing saying that you can't use the name Dove as your nickname.
True, but I do like the idea of having it as my given name. Especially when Dad is willing to pay.
Before my children started high school, I gave them the option of changing their names if they wanted. Mine both had unusual names. I changed my own name at age 21. I think the name you are given at birth reflects current cultural norms, whether it be to use cherished family names, traditional cultural names, or current popular names. But there is no way to know if the name you give a child will represent their personality or needs later in life. My children chose to keep their names as given, but I wouldn't have been the least bit upset if they wanted different names or went by nicknames.
Not the a-hole. She asked, you gave her an honest answer. Parents choose names for newborns knowing nothing about what their personalities and preferences will be. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. My parents gave me an uncommon but fairly normal name, while my uncle wanted me to be named Rainbow. As it happens, I would have been more suited to be Rainbow than my given name, haha. But you just can't know if the name you give a baby will suit them for their whole lives.
Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law that she needs to stop telling my 6-year-old to be ladylike? I am a dad of 3, 10 female, 10 male, and 6 female. My 10-year-old daughter is pretty girly, but my 6-year-old daughter follows my son around like his little shadow and is what people sometimes call a tomboy. Disclaimer, I have no idea if that is an offensive term now, but apologize if it is. She loves sports and being outside with her big brother, and they are pretty close. For the spring, she just started playing lacrosse, which my 10-year-old son has been playing for years, and they have been spending so much time together outside practicing. It's pretty cool to watch as a dad, since I was worried about my singleton bonding with the twins when she was born. Anyway, my mother-in-law was over the other day and the kids were outside playing while we were on the porch watching, and my wife was making dinner. They were just playing catch and my son leaned over to spit, so my 6-year-old did the same. My mother-in-law said nothing to my son about it but yelled, "Rosa, you need to be more ladylike. Don't copy your brother when he does that." I told her it wasn't that big of a deal, but she insisted that we need to get this under control because Rosa doesn't act like a lady should and is getting too old to think it's okay. I argued with her a bit and she ended up leaving. Now my wife is mad because she thinks I disrespected her mother and should have understood that it's cultural for my mother-in-law and she will always think this way. If it matters, I am a white guy from New England and my wife's mom is from Nigeria, but my wife was born and raised in the US. My wife insists that I need to be more understanding of the cultural differences and understand where her mom is coming from. Edit, guys, this is not a spitting in public debate. I would have been fine if my mother-in-law corrected both kids because spitting is gross. I am annoyed that she only corrected my daughter because of her gender. Can we please stick to the issue at hand?
Not the a-hole. Take your time and educate the women in your life. Both of them. Your daughter is growing up into a world very different than these women grew up in.
That's actually a good point. My mother-in-law is in her 70s, so she grew up in a much different time where women and girls had certain expectations.
Can't wait until she gives your kids career and real estate advice.
Not the a-hole. You can absolutely understand cultural differences and still understand they are wrong. All mother-in-law is doing is enforcing gender roles. Why? Partly out of an innate selfish desire to see our offspring reflect our own identities, and partly because they want the next generation to fit in and not have problems. But a girl being whatever she wants when she becomes a woman isn't a problem in this country. Your wife is on the wrong side of this argument. There is something to be said for not letting kids simply do whatever they want as a means of being themselves. That's not good parenting either. Kids need to understand that there's a lot of doing what you don't want to do that goes into being a functional adult. Going to support family by attending events, going to religious services, doing chores, etc. But I think it is perfectly healthy for your daughter to pursue the hobbies she wants to pursue.
Not the a-hole. I think it is very wrong to ever tell a girl to be ladylike. It's putting a constraints on her and restricting her opportunities. I was told this 50 years ago, and I thought it was wrong then, and it's wrong now.
Thanks. It is a reoccurring issue with mother-in-law.
I'm fully with you on this. If she told both kids to cut it out because it's impolite or gross, that would have been one thing. But she didn't. Not the a-hole.
Not the a-hole for your message overall, as your daughter should absolutely be able to play sports and rough it with her brother. Your mother-in-law is old-fashioned and rude. However, don't teach your kids to spit. That's also rude and gross, boy or girl. No one wants to walk in someone else's spit. Give them a water bottle so they stay hydrated when playing.
Not the a-hole. The kids is being a kid. Your wife is the disrespectful one. She needs to tell her mom not to say those things in your house because it's a cultural thing that guests let the parent. Let her use her reasoning on her mother instead. Your mother-in-law is also the a-hole. She can believe what she wants, but it's not her place to yell at a 6 years old, and definitely not for some nebulous thing like being more ladylike. A 6 years old doesn't know what that means. If she is concerned, she can talk to you calmly when the kids are not around.
Am I the a-hole for accepting money from my parents for my wedding then eloping? My parents gave each of my brothers $50,000 when they graduated from university as a down payment on their home. When I graduated, they did not do the same for me. I asked about it, and they said my husband should provide. I wasn't married. I still lived at home. 3 years later, I met my husband. We dated for a year, and then we got engaged. My parents were overjoyed. When we set a date, they gave me a check for $50,000 to pay for the wedding. What a fact? I took the check and we eloped. We then used the check for a down payment on a house. My husband had a similar amount saved up, so we are in a good spot with equity. My parents were furious that they didn't get a big wedding for all their friends and family to attend. They said that they gave me the money for a wedding. My argument is that I got married and had leftover money. Accurate in my books. My brothers are on their side, so I am here to ask if I'm in the wrong. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole. Your family is being horrible and is using a bullshit double standard. They didn't expect your brothers to use that money for a big wedding. But you have to. They wouldn't have helped you get a home unless it was through marriage. But your brothers didn't have that condition and just got the money. And they expected you to have a huge wedding so that they could have fun. Saving up the money is the responsible thing to do, and they're being bad parents if they'd rather you spend it all in a huge wedding you don't even want. Edit. Just a question, to be clear. There was a wedding and they were invited, right? They're angry because it wasn't big enough?
There was a wedding.
If they wanted to pay for a fancy wedding, then they should have planned for and paid for the fancy wedding directly themselves. They gave you the money directly for a wedding. If you had $49,950 after paying $50 to the justice of the peace, well, I guess you planned better than they did. Not the a-hole.
If, for example, this concerned money set aside for education, I'd judge you in the wrong. But $50K for a wedding when your brothers got that same amount for a home is outrageous. Seriously, what the heck were they thinking? Hi, daughter dear. Rather than giving you $50K to set you up quite comfortably housing-wise, we want you to burn through it for a single day called wedding. You see, you have melons up top rather than ping-pong balls and a sausage down below, so what on earth makes you think you need financial security? Us having fun at that party and being able to brag about it for decades is way more important. Misogyny aside, I also loathe the fact that they wouldn't have given it to you if you'd preferred to remain single. It's basically bullying you into marriage. Not the a-hole. And if it costs you your relationship with your parents, that might be better in the long run in any case.
Not the a-hole. You found a loophole. It seems odd they gave you the money outright versus paying the wedding invoices. Sorry your parents have double standards.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.